Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of Gaming with Soul, seeking soul through the lens of gaming and pop culture. I'm
Yay, you
Jamie.
remembered.
Yeah,
Hi, I'm Corin.
last last week was a bit of a yeah. The sad part
Yeah,
is
hi.
I asked you to remind me before we actually went live. We go live and I forgot it.
Yep, yep. I will beg everybody's forgiveness. I have a cold, so if I am stuffed up and snuffly and a little bit all over the place, yeah, I've got a head full of soggy cotton wool.
Let's call you Snuffle Up, I guess. That'd be great.
Okay, big bird.
I love Snuffy so
Oh,
very
me
much.
too. Me too. He was always my favorite. Oh,
Yeah.
dear me. So today we were going to have a look into what our classes, our class choice in our gaming says about us on a deeper level.
Yep.
This one, it really is going to be a bit of an examination into archetypes, shall we
Yep.
say. Now, before we go any further, let's have a little bit of a discussion on what an archetype is. Now, archetypes are, I mean, very much the buzzword if you are talking psychology or spirituality at the
Yep.
moment. Now, again, we're separating religion from spirituality. Religion is more this following a doctrine, follow this belief system to have this kind of a connection with the divine. What we are talking about is our personal relationship with whatever we classify divine to be, or whether or not this relationship is actually just a connection with our higher selves, our higher level of consciousness, and you want to take this on a purely psychological level because this works both ways. You can deepen your spirituality, or you can understand self. So, whatever, and whatever doesn't work, you just throw it in the fuck it bucket.
Yep.
I think that's the best and easiest way to go about it at the moment. Is we're going to throw a lot of stuff out there. Some of it is going to be weird for you. Some of it you might sit with for a while, and a year later it'll be, oh, now I get it. Until then, yeah, anything that doesn't resonate, put it in the fuck it bucket. We are here to have a discussion. We are not saying, yes, this is the way it is. We are saying this is how we have interpreted this.
Correct.
This is how we are coming at this from our personal experiences, from our experiences of soul, to help other people who have been where we were when we were younger, before we've come to this understanding, to reach out to people who may be feeling lost and alone, to help you connect to yourself on a deeper level, to connect to other people who are perhaps feeling and thinking the same way that you are, and to create a safe space to have some deep discussions on some topics that a lot of people will think are a little bit nuts. Because on surface levels, it kind of looks nuts. But again, as we talked about last episode, this is about our stories. And that is what
Yep.
archetypes are all about. When you look at human history, if you go back through the different cultures, now completely separate, isolated cultures, hidden in the stories, in the legends, in the tales of their gods, are archetypes. Now, archetypes, I mean, they are our earliest programmed patterns. Now, what are the archetypes? Well, depends on who you ask. If you start researching this stuff, you will go down this wormhole that is, there are anything from 4 to over 100 different archetypes, depending upon who you talk to. I worked in a group that focused on 6 for the feminine. I'm in another group that has a focus on 13. It really depends. But if you look, and we will take this up to just Jungian's psychology, where there are the 4 primaries, and then all the others are assorted versions of these 4 primaries. Now, we will talk from the generalities. So rather than splitting at this point into masculine and feminine, again, not male, female, but masculine and feminine. The four are generally warrior. So all the different divisions of warrior, whether that be masculine or feminine. If you go to feminine, sometimes it's called Amazon, but generally we've got warrior. Lover, again, masculine or feminine. We have sovereign, which also encompasses parents, so mother, father. So king, queen, masculine, feminine there. And then we have magician, witch, medicine man, medicine woman, the elder aspect in its masculine and feminine too. And then all the different versions and mixtures of that. And then when you look into different cultures, you will see, with the different gods and the different stories, that there are these similarities from culture to culture to culture, similarities in symbolism between different divine aspects. I mean, you look at things like Odin and Jupiter and Zeus. There are commonalities that run between them. Whether or not you say, oh, yes, these stories were derived from that, or were these, again, just their own stories that evolved based on their connection to the divine or the archetype. But we see these similarities everywhere. And we all have these mixed elements of, again, we all embody all the archetypes. We all have them, just as we all embody an element of masculine and feminine. But we're all different blends of that. It's like we will be more of one and more of the other. It's like, yes, I'm a very feminine, generally woman, long hair, long dresses. I always feel that kind of feminine flow thing. But I'm a maths girl, straight line logic and analytical. I like plans. I like strategy. I like to know where things are going. And that is a very masculine general trait. The wibbledy wobbledy all over the place. Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
That straight line is definitely there.
Yeah, where I'm fairly masculine. I build shit with my hands. I like to hammer things. I like to, brute force my way through things. I'm all that, but I don't plan. I do a lot of things off the cuff. I like we discuss this podcast outside of this podcast because of course the world exists outside of this podcast. And you're constantly like, we need a plan, we need a plan, we need a plan. And I'm just like, let's do it.
Yeah, but as I say, I'm not I don't want a strategy. This is exactly what we're going to say. It's just like, give me a topic. So at least I know where I'm coming from, especially considering I'm supposed to be the bloody expert.
Yeah. Well, and I'm
You're just like, yeah, let's do this. First, just throw you into it. Nah.
Yeah. So then,
so I'm not that anal, shall we say, about the plans. I'm not that, give me this, we need to know exactly what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it. Just like, give me a goal, give me a focus, give me somewhere that we're going. Yeah, sure, I can take the scenic route, that's fine. If I know I got to come back round to this point again. So for me, I mean, look, if we want to talk a little astrology, I'm a Libra, and so I'm all about balance. I'm very much finding that balance up, down. Yes, I'm this and this. One of my mentors talks a lot about the both and. Yes, I am intuitive. I am psychic. I'm going through even more growth. All this awakening, all this healing, all that sort of thing. But yeah, at the core, there's still the gamer. Yeah. And I'm sick to death of hiding that from the world, because of the psychics tell me that I need to grow up and do more meaningful things, and then hiding it from the gamers because, hey, look, you're a weirdo.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was a little bit of a discussion. Does that explain to you more what the archetypes are? Do I need to go deeper? Do you think that's enough?
No. It's kind of funny because I've only touched on the warrior side of ones, which of course I'm assuming part of the warrior is the hero and the this and that. Yeah. So I was like, oh, the four are my brain is like, the four are the the child, the I forget the four from the book. Crap, brain
Well,
function.
well, the book that I gave you and shared with you, now this it is, and I will mention it because from a Jungian psychology book, it is awesome. It is
Yeah,
flawed, like most psychology books, and I will put that out there. There are, and again, there are nuggets of gold. You go out there,
yeah,
you find your nuggets of gold. You find those elements that's like, yep, this rings true for me. Yep, this rings true for me. Nope, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's
yeah.
bullshit. Put it in the fuck it bucket.
Well, and even a
Again,
good
guys, I'm Australian. I will swear a lot, so get used to it.
well, and even a good psychiatrist will talk about like they're flawed too. They
Yeah,
one of the big traps they have to watch themselves on is assuming they know a thing. So
yeah,
like where they'll be like, this is how your brain works, this is how you think, this is how blah blah blah, when it's because they have a small piece of it or whatever, they think they figured it all out. They're like, this will solve your problem. And sometimes it'll turn out that they're wrong. Like they've
yeah,
they were so
and
sure that they
some,
were right that they missed something.
yeah, and some will absolutely be, this is, let's face it, most people that do psychology are either out there to try and figure out what's wrong with themselves
Yep.
or to learn how to manipulate other people. That tends to be the
Yeah.
thing. It's like, yes, they want to help and yes, they want to understand or whatever. But again, you break down those if you want to get simplistic
Yeah.
about it. And yes, that is overly simplistic. Most people who do psychology, yes, they want to be psychologists. It's again to have that deeper understanding. Usually it comes from an understanding of self. And if you have a look, psychologists and psychiatrists, it has a very high suicide rate.
Yeah.
And the author of King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which is a great book on male archetypes, both from the immature, which is, grandstander, bully, coward is the shadow versions, but the hero is the immature version of warrior.
Yeah.
So the heroes, I mean, we will go really deeply into hero and warrior. I don't know if we need to go in deeply into the four archetypes, but there are the feminine versions of as well.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
we'll probably go deeply in another episode. I think this one
yeah.
is just kind of the introduction to
So this is where
archetypes.
we are coming from as
Yep.
to why this discussion is important. And so we're
Yep.
just touching on the warrior hero aspect. But ultimately, yeah, in this particular book, it is an awesome look at these things. Again, flawed,
Yep.
but the author murder suicide. He shot his wife and then killed himself. This
Yeah.
renowned psychologist wrote this
Yeah.
amazing book on Jungian archetypes in masculine personalities. And
Yep.
yeah, he went and did something like that. So
Yeah.
there is good knowledge there, but just remember where it came from.
Yeah.
But
Also,
a lot of modern talks and archetypes, especially masculinity, still draws from this particular book.
yep.
So it's just
Also,
something to be aware of. Sorry.
we are not shaming or insulting psychiatrists in anything. I think
No.
psychology and psychiatry is very necessary. I
Oh,
am one of those
yes.
people who believes that, if you can afford it, get a psychiatrist, get a psychologist, whatever you need,
Look,
because,
I would
and there
not
is no
be
shame in it.
here. Yeah, I would not be here if I hadn't had, some help, medication, and
Yeah.
things like that when I went through some incredibly dark times when
Yeah.
I was younger. Medication saved my life. And if you need it, bloody take it. And if you
Yeah.
need support, go and get support. If you feel that
Yeah.
you're on the brink, reach out.
Yeah.
Goodness, reach out to your doctor to find a psychiatrist, find one of those online phone calls. If you are in
Yeah.
those dark places, there is no shame,
Yeah.
no shame whatsoever in reaching out. It is necessary for the human condition
Yeah.
to reach out to others. I
Yeah.
mean, yes, we want to create a supportive community, but yes, I believe in the professionals. But I
Yeah.
also believe too that if your doctors are not helping you, find another one.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I just wanted to make it perfectly clear that we're
Yeah,
not like shaming psychiatrists or anything. I
no,
believe they
no,
are.
we're not. Again, great wisdom coming from them, but you need to believe your own wisdom on top of that. You need to trust
Yeah.
what rings true for you. And always the, you know what, okay, fuck it, bucket.
Yeah.
Put it in that, put it over to the side, take what works for you and put the rest away. But again,
Yeah.
remembering that doctors, psychiatrists are humans and humans can be
Yep.
very flawed. So
Exactly.
trust your own instinct. If they're not helping you, find someone who does.
Yep.
If you
And any
need
good,
help, reach out.
yep. And any good psychiatrist and mental health professional will also agree with that. They will tell you, hey, if this isn't working, we can find someone who will.
Yeah. And so what we are doing here today is not meant to be to replace any therapy, any counseling, or any healing
Mm-hmm.
that you need. We are here to open a discussion,
Yep. Yep.
to encourage people to start talking about these weirder topics, because there's so much juicy, meaningful stuff there if we only open ourselves up to it, and to open up and create a community where
Yep.
like-minded gamers can come and talk about the deep, weird stuff that happens to them, and also feel connected and not so isolated from each other.
Yep.
So yes, we are weaving a little bit of psychology with a little bit of spirituality and modern day storytelling and pop culture and games, and its importance of it. So that weaves us right back to classes.
Yes.
So we will start with the obvious. Well, how about we just start with your favorite, the tank?
Tank. I love tanking. Tank, the one who stands in front of all the enemies and takes it to the face so the rest of the party doesn't.
Yeah,
The
basically a
protector.
defender.
Oh, the defender,
Yeah,
the protector, the warrior. It is by and large the warrior.
very much so. But it's of that, yes, draw the fire, the sacrifice.
Yep.
Make of the sacrifice in order to protect others, or in order
Yep.
to care for others,
And
to
sometimes
to
it's
serve.
making that sacrifice to let others do the things they need to do.
Hmm. This is to the old draw their fire, draw their attention, while someone else goes in and does what needs to be done.
Yep. And
So why has
yeah,
that aspect always talked to you?
I grew up, I mentioned this in the last episode. I grew up poor. I grew up in a trailer park, and I was the attention of most of the bullies. And what ended up happening in a lot of ways is I kind of got a little group of friends together, and I would draw the fire of the bullies because I was the one strong enough to take it. I was the one with the mental, I was not physically strong enough, but I was the one with the mental fortitude to be able to stand up and take that beating every single day so they didn't have to. And that's something that's always spoke to me, you know, standing up to take that beating so other people don't have to, because I know I'm strong enough to take it. And that's not to say they're weak and they're pathetic, blah, blah, blah. It's to say that to me, I don't like to see other people suffer. I don't like people to go through the pain that I've been through. I went real deep on this, and I don't know if that's what I should have done. Um, but I don't like to see other people suffer. I hate it. It affects me in such a passionate way that I will take suffering so others don't have to. And that's who I am. And that's why I love playing tank, because I am the one who's drawing all the enemy's fire. I pull them away. I make sure they're facing the right directions and leading. It's also a big leadership thing. You're usually the one out front because you're the one who has to make the pulls. So you have to be the front line to figure out the plan to kind of to go through with it.
Yeah. Where do you think, or where do you feel that comes from, if that's not coming from a pure place? What do you think the shadow is of that?
To me, and I don't know how right this is, but the shadow of that would probably be, assuming they still follow the same, wanting to take the damage and whatnot, would be how do I put this? The glory. You want all the glory. You're the one who, I'm the one who saved you all. I'm the one who did all the things.
Yeah. And that's that again when we go deep into the whole hero warrior archetype. That's pretty much the difference is the hero's in it for himself.
Yeah.
And that in it for himself can be anything from something quite righteous to
Hmm.
something very self-serving, but ultimately he gets something out of it, whereas the
Yeah.
warrior is doing it for a higher purpose,
And yeah.
for a greater good, so to
And
speak.
you can see this a lot in MMOs. You see those tanks out there that are like, I'm the tank. I'm the reason that this raid does well. I'm the one that carries everyone else on their shoulders. I'm the one who does all these things. And then there's, and this is, I used to be that tank in WoW when I was one of the top 10 tanks on my I was the number 2 warrior tank in the top 10 tanks on at least my server. I forget if it was overall or not because it's been years now. But um, I was like, yeah, I'm one of the best tanks in the world. I'm awesome. I'm good at tanking. Other people could learn tanking from me. I'm much more laid back with it now. And for me, it's like I take of it, we'll touch back to Final Fantasy 14 here for a minute, and I'll touch on D&D a little too. But Final Fantasy 14, I believe, has a huge problem right now where everyone believes they're DPS. Tanks believe that they need to maximize their damage output. Healers believe they need to maximize their damage output. I hate that mindset. And
Mm-hmm.
I came at it at the angle of I'm going to maximize or I'm going to minimize damage taken. And doing that will allow the healer less or to use less time healing me, which will allow them to do more damage. And then while they're doing focusing less on doing damage, or they're focusing less on healing me, they're also focusing more on keeping the 2 DPS alive. So the 2 DPS can also do their job, which is to do the damage, because the numbers are there to prove that that's the best way to do it. Like I've ran, now this will show how nerdy I am when it comes to MMOs. I spent about 3 hours one day just running numbers on how much damage I do, my maximum potential damage output if I did all this stuff compared to my maximum damage output if I focus more on defense. And I realized the number was so minuscule that it didn't matter and stuff like that. I ran through, it was like, okay, I do an extra 300 damage a hit, which, yes, adds up. But when you're talking about 20,000 damage hits, it takes a
Yeah.
bit to add up compared to, oh, but I'm taking 10% less damage, which means I'm taking several thousand less damage, which means the healer is using one less heal per rotation that they could put somewhere else. And since the healer does so much more damage than I do, just from a pure damage output, it means that technically our overall DPS is a part. It's a whole big thing. But I think that
Um,
that is kind of the difference between, to me anyway, the hero and the warrior. Is
yeah.
I'm doing it to maximize them instead of I'm doing it because I want all the glory for tanking.
And that is the primary difference between hero and warrior. The hero is in there to test his limits and for self-glory. Again, whatever that glory is, whether that is revenge because his entire people has been wiped out. That going after someone that's not for a higher good. That's revenge.
Yeah.
But whereas the warrior is purely serving of something greater, which is usually the group, the community, a
Mm-hmm.
purpose, a divine thing, something
Yeah.
along those lines, is usually on that self-sacrificing level.
Yeah.
The other element too is true warrior tends to be, actually, no, we won't worry about that. That's going deeper into the archetypes. I don't think that needs to be explored.
Uh,
The other thing I was going to
Not
ask
yet anyway. We
was,
will eventually.
yeah, um, I need to do more homework on that because although
Yeah.
I know stuff, it's one of those. If I'm going to talk deeply on it, I'd want to do a bit more research, and it really is a goddamn rabbit hole. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty full on, especially when you're trying to look at it from both angles, from that spiritual and the psychological, and then trusting my intuition, going what serves our group
Yeah.
compared to, whether we go hardcore in that way or hardcore in that way. So Anyway, I wanted to go back to, are there any other sort of classes or archetypes or roles in gaming that you do feel more called to than any other?
Uh, to
Or is
be
it primarily
honest,
just your tanking?
oh no, if we talk D&D, I'm also very much I'm called to almost any of them in different aspects. It really depends on my mood at the time, I guess. Um, but in D&D, I do like to play a healer from time to time, although to be fair, my healer does kind of turn out to be more of a tank.
Yes,
Uh,
your life clerics are usually pretty impressive
tanky.
creatures. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
but for a long time, I was very much into the subterfuge, the rogue.
yeah,
Um, there was
which is
a
mine.
yeah, there was a several year point in my life where that was all I played in D&D. Um,
Hmm.
in MMOs, not so much, other than healer, but even that's yeah.
Can I ask then, when you went through the period where you were playing a lot of subterfuge, were you going through a period in your life where you were feeling unseen?
Yes, that is a very accurate thing. Or at the very least, I didn't want to be seen.
Yeah, and can go either way. It's like I am hiding or nobody sees me.
Yeah, and it
And
depending on the day, it could go either way.
yeah.
But
And a part of that too, I mean, for you playing the role of warrior, of hero, those are aspects that speak to you on that deep soul level. Those are those elements that call to your soul. But also too, because of modern society being what it is, it doesn't exactly give you that option and opportunity to embody what you feel on
yeah,
that soul level. So, that aspect, calling out to be embodied, games give you those options to live out and to embody these things that you feel in yourself on a soul level. But yeah, going, as you say, going down out in the street in full battle armor with a big long sword is yeah,
generally frowned upon.
yeah, you could upset the children.
Yeah,
Actually, no, the kids would probably love it. It's yeah, other people that
yeah,
would have the problem. But it's an interesting thing that this is who you are on that soul level, and so when you play, this is how how it manifests majoritively. Obviously, yes, you'll have other times where you feel and you want to do something different because hey, same all the time is boring.
yeah,
For me, though, because I am the healer, I mean, yes, not in that medical kind of a way, but on that emotional and personal and spiritual way, that is what I do. All I want to do is help people and heal people and take care of them. That's the mystic mama that I am. But
yeah,
it is rare in a game that I take up that role or want to take up the role of healer. And that is the difference between who you are on that soul level and who I am on that soul level. Because on that soul level, obviously, I do what my soul calls me to do.
yeah,
In my work and in my profession, I have the ability to enact and to embody what I feel I am on that soul level, whereas you do not. And so your soul seeks that out.
yeah. That makes sense.
My majorative, I mean, yes, I love a good caster. I've always loved a good caster, just for shits and giggles. I've had some fun with a couple of them. Um, Actually, my last two casters have been awesome. I've loved them both.
Yeah,
But traditionally, my game class has been subterfuge. I have always, I mean, I loved, there was a game called Thief that I
yes,
absolutely adored. I played it the old original, and then I've played the remake of that. As I mentioned last time round, my all-time favorite series is Assassin's Creed. And
yeah,
for the most part, yes, I play sneaky stabby.
yeah.
That's yes, I'll
I
go through the fuck this. I'm just going to go on a killing spree.
I
But I huh?
I tried playing the original Thief once. It went terribly.
I mean,
Oh,
the original thief, you weren't supposed to kill people. You were supposed
oh
to just
yeah.
sneak in, steal shit, and get out again.
Uh-huh. I couldn't sneak into the first building, gave up and walked away.
That first building was actually one of the hardest ones.
Yeah,
But
well,
yeah,
kept me
I've,
out.
I've always I've always loved the subterfuge. I've always loved the sneaky stabby. And yes, there were huge periods in my life where I felt unseen or I
Yeah,
wasn't allowed to be seen. I
yeah,
wasn't allowed to be heard. And so I kind of hid.
yeah,
And yeah, because the assassin, the thief kind of character has that dark, nasty, shadowy aspect to all those repressed feelings and emotions that you're told you're not allowed to have. Well, it comes out in these darker characters. So of course, with the subterfuge, it's the being hidden or keeping ourselves out of sight. So on a positive, it actually says to us that we kind of need to find our voice, to
yeah.
allow ourselves to be seen, to come out of the shadows. So it talks to us on that level where
Embrace
you
the
know
shadows.
but yeah, it encourages us to not just embrace the shadows, but to also come out
Yeah.
of them and allow
So-
ourselves to be seen as well.
That was a wow quote. I apologize. It just came out.
Yeah, I never played WoW. See, I
Yeah.
was of that generation that, the very idea of paying an ongoing
Yeah.
fee to
Oh,
play a
I get that a
game,
lot. Yeah.
yeah, that was huge for us. That was just like, I'm not doing that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll pay X amount out front, even an exorbitant amount, but I'm not paying something ongoing just to play a game.
Yeah, for me though, I understand why they require it, and that's why it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I understand that now, but of course it was such a different thing at the
Yeah. Oh
time
yeah.
that a
Yeah.
lot of us we just no,
Yeah, it's
stuff
it
that.
and the whole thing is you're paying the fee for them to keep the servers maintained and to keep a staff on to fix any critical errors that are
Any
happening
bugs
and
and
stuff like
things like
that.
that, and add more content and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I get all that stuff now, but again, in the day when it
Yeah,
all
yeah.
first change bad,
Change
change
bad.
bad,
Change.
change
Change bad.
no bad change. So yeah, that was a huge thing.
Yeah.
All right, so we go to, shall we say, the caster?
Well, we briefly touched subterfuge and healer kind of there, but
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go for healer. We've
yeah.
talked subterfuge a fair bit, the healer aspect of it.
Well,
And
I do want to touch one thing on subterfuge. I do find it weird that in D&D I can play a rogue. In D&D I can play a rogue all day every day. I can sneak into any building. There's a legendary rogue I made once called Hope, who actually soloed most of the campaign while the rest of the characters were trying to keep up with her. Um, you put me in front of a game like Dishonored or Assassin's Creed, or I sneak for about the first 5 minutes and then I just kill everyone. That's just how I play subterfuge games. I don't get it. In a video game, I can't seem to do it, but in D&D, I'll do it all day long. Okay, moving
perhaps
on.
that's the format though, because I
Yeah,
mean, in video games, the mind perhaps wants more stimulation from it,
fair,
whereas
fair.
whereas D&D is contemplative to begin with.
Yeah,
And it is scenario enriching rather than visually stimulating. And again, it requires a different mindset,
yeah,
very different mindset to play D&D than it does to play any video game. Because of course D&D requires a deeper aspect of thought.
yeah.
I mean that's why I've found that I love DMing or GMing as it is now. I love that aspect of it. I
GMing is
love
the
creating the scenario.
GMing is the general term. DMing
Is
is
the general, yes. DMing is
Dungeon
Dungeons
Dragons
and Dragons. Yeah.
specific.
Yeah, but also too, I read somewhere that they're trying to take the DM name out because of other connotations around DM. So
Yeah, like direct message and
direct
detecting.
message and yeah, porn terminology.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
so
was going to
it's
try to
turned.
breeze over
Uh,
that one. I know.
truth is truth.
Fair
Screw that.
enough. Fair enough.
But so I mean, I love the storytelling aspect of it. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel that being a psychic probably gives me an advantage
Yeah.
Being a good GM, because I have a good idea how you guys are going to react and how you're going to work through these situations. So at least I can try and create and at least stay on those, stay on that particular path.
Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, going back to where we were, healers.
Yeah.
Okay. People drawn to being in that healer, that healing, the caregiver kind of energy, the caregiver archetypes. These can come out with people who want to be nurturers, but often we've found tend to be the class that isn't always the first chosen.
Yeah.
Can often be hard to find someone to play the healer in a group.
In D&D, that is especially true. A lot of D&D groups have a problem where it's kind of whoever chooses their character last ends up being the healer, and then some groups get around that by they rotate who has to be the healer in each campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have found that generally speaking, I end up finding somebody who likes to play healers in my groups. In the case of a lot of my groups, it's my wife. My wife
Mm-hmm.
actually enjoys playing healers a lot of the time. She also enjoys playing rogues and rangers, but she definitely likes playing healers.
Yeah.
Um, I end up in that role a lot because again, it is the last picked. It's like everyone has already picked their thing. Well, we don't have a healer. That's why I made the life or figured out how to make the life cleric as tanky as it has, because then I can actually take both roles
Do
simultaneously.
both. Yeah.
um, but yeah, and I find that like in MMOs, that's true too. Tanks and healers are the rarest too, because everyone
Yeah.
just a lot of people think, oh, damage are the rock stars of MMOs, and it's like, yeah, most of the time they're whiny bitches trailing off for effect.
I mean, there is, if you go into some, I mean, you can get into some really deep elements of psychology around this. It's like, it's not the most glamorous of roles.
Yeah,
It's,
it's not.
it doesn't get the credit that it's due. Let's face it, a good party wouldn't survive without a healer.
Oh yeah, and
Um,
in MMOs, it's like the party. If the party does well, no one thinks that the tank did good. If the party does terribly, everybody blames the tank. It's the same with the
yeah,
healer. It depends on
yeah.
why it all fell apart. But yeah, like a smooth running party, it's usually because your tank and your healer did a phenomenal job, and you won't see
Keeping
it.
everybody alive. Yeah.
Yeah, and you won't see it because it's just like, oh, that went really smoothly, cool. And you don't see how hard the tank worked or how hard the healer worked or how second nature it becomes to them after a while. But in a good party, that goes unnoticed. In a terrible party, you notice right away. And so that's why it's hard to find a tank and a healer, because it's like, well, either we get nothing or we get shit on. You know?
Uh-huh. And there is that aspect of it. It's like those are the two classes more than any other classes that serve the
Yeah.
rest of the party rather than being self-focused.
Yeah.
And in gaming, again, a lot, as we like to either play out what we cannot play in life, we will try to avoid being the one that, again, is the forgotten one, or the ignored one, or the
Yeah.
underappreciated one, and try to go and follow those paths that are a little bit more grandoise, shall we say. Is that how I pronounce that? That sounds good. I'll
Oh,
stick
close
with
enough. Good enough.
that.
Moving on.
So it's that whole, these are the classes that serve. They're the
Yeah.
ones that legitimately serve the rest. And let's face it, we don't exactly get a lot of glory in our day-to-day lives unless you're like a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Glory is a hard thing to come by. So in pursuing that through our games, we may not think much about it because again, these are the things that happen at the back of our brains. So it's
Yeah.
not coming to the forefront to say, oh, I am doing this intentionally. It's like
Oh
you
yeah.
get that, oh, but I don't want to. I
Like
don't want to be that. I want to be this.
if you would have never asked me why I tank, never would have thought about it. It's just the thing I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And these are the discussions that we want to open. You can understand a lot about yourself when you have a good look at these things,
Yep.
and why they're so important to us. Because again, these are our stories. These are where we are turning to for meaning in our lives now. Once upon a time, they talked about the old gods and the old ways. That was your tabletop, your
Yeah.
discussions around the fire, your discussions with your friend. These were the things that you would talk about.
Yep.
Now these stories are coming to us through our games. And as we said last time, our games, as well as, yes, TV, movies, books, comics, wherever you get this stuff from. But games are the one avenue where our stories are truly interactive.
Yep. Unless you find a really good choose your own adventure book.
Yes. Yes. But they kind of don't make them for adults, which is
The fighting fantasies kind of were back in the day, well, at least for
uh,
older teenagers.
I used to read some really creepy ones, but again, they were kind
I
of
got
outgrew them.
I got real big into the Goosebump ones growing up.
I see, but Goosebumps was after me. I was too old by the time Goosebumps was a
Fair enough.
thing. And my kids, they've kind of gotten into. They read a few of them, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not their series. So casters. I mean, let's face it, who doesn't want to wield that kind of power?
Yeah,
Who
that's
who
true.
who who doesn't love that idea? I mean, talk of or think about the having that kind of energy,
Yeah.
magic course through us, especially to those of us who have felt truly powerless.
Yeah.
Truly powerless in our lives. The idea of being able to throw something like a disintegrator at your enemy,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
and
I get something different out of Caster, but yes, I
what do you
understand
get?
that deeply. I love the I like to call it the mental math that you do with a caster. Me and you have had a private discussion about the fact that I'm not a fan of blasters.
Yep.
I'm not a fan at all, but I love the trying to find creative uses for other spells. And I truly believe, at least in D&D, that if you can utilize more than just damaging spells, you can actually do a lot more damage to something than just using damage spells. But that's a personal belief of mine.
And as a DM, or GM, I can see that. I can see the ability to put and to weave these things together where they get absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But part of that again goes against the way I've always done, because I've always been a yes. I've every time I've tried to weave something like that, it's just like I could have killed them if I did that.
Well, yeah, and as a GM, that's true. You can absolutely decimate a party on accident by proper use
Uh-huh.
of spells. Like,
Yeah.
uh, I've done that as a GM. I sent them against an appropriate amount of challenge rating of vampires, then realized every vampire intrinsically knows Fireball in the edition we were doing. So what happened is the party walked into the group and just got fireballed to death.
I mean, the other thing for me too is I'm still new at being a GM. I mean, literally, this is
Yeah,
only the second game that I'm GMing. I've done a one shot. We've done one campaign, and now we're doing this new one, which is almost a complete. Well, it's a homebrew based on a campaign.
yeah, it's using the campaign book, but then modifying it to change some characters into Muppets, which is hilarious.
Curse of
Especially when you
Strahd
consider it's
with
Curse of
Muppets.
Strahd. Yeah.
Yes. This is an awesome campaign. I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I love the whole storytelling, but I will admit that I don't know all the mechanics.
Yeah,
I
and that's
don't know
fine.
all the spells and stuff like that. So I'm still learning
Yeah.
how to do that, which
Yeah, and
is, yeah,
I'm there for a lot of the mechanical help. And
yeah,
the big thing I'm trying to teach you is it doesn't matter.
yeah. I'm still
Like,
getting used to that whole thing because I like the rules.
yeah, and that's perfectly fine. And yes, the rules should be applied when you can. But in
Yeah.
lieu of knowing the rules, going with a something that can stand until we figure out the rule or whatever is just as important and effective.
Yeah, and there's been a couple of times where it's just like, you know what, that's stupid. I'm going to go logically.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Logically, if we think logically and in the way physics would work, you know what, this is actually probably going to be
Uh-huh.
more believable.
Um,
So I'm going to go in
which
that direction.
which is funny because that means my friend Ray would absolutely love to be a character in your game because he is constantly looking for ways to bend the rules based upon real world physics.
Yes, but yeah, I mean, from your direction, I can understand why it's so interesting to you. But I think from this perspective of the archetypes and the character, the
Oh
role
yeah.
play, I think
Yep.
magic user in particular, or caster in particular, calls to those who, on those that powerlessness. That
Yeah.
if you
Well,
have,
and yeah, I was
not
going to say
again,
not just powerless, but just people who crave power in general.
yes. Again, there's the two sides of it. There are those who
Yeah.
crave it from that being feeling small and weak and vulnerable and wanting to feel all powerful or wanting to feel that they had that power. And the caster archetypes tend to be physically weak,
Yeah.
but have this incredible power that runs through it. Yes, of course, the narcissistic, I want all the power so, I can rule the world and everyone bows down. Yeah, that's that shadow
Yeah.
aspect associated with. But on that personal level, most people, it comes from that, the small wanting a way to express that power and to express that strength from
Hmm.
within. So I
Or,
think that's
yeah, like people in positions in their life where they feel powerless tend to gravitate towards casters.
yeah.
And
And sorry.
of course, this is all like tend to and not. We're not. I'm trying to make it clear that we are not saying that if you play a caster, you are weak. That's not the point.
No, no, it's not. Absolutely not. It's not saying that. I mean, let's face it. Most of us, at some point in our life, had a point where we felt,
Oh yeah.
where we felt small or we felt
Hmm.
helpless. I mean,
Oh
it
yeah.
might be something still from when we were little,
Hmm.
when we were really little, and it's still something that when we tap into or when we go within, we go to that little place, and it calls that aspect out. But it's a way to identify this aspect of self is when we feel, or perhaps we're just in a space in our life when we choose to create this character,
Yeah.
but we feel that need to be a bit more powerful, or we want to channel power
Yeah.
and energy, and we will choose that no, the academic or the raw magic. Are we feeling a little bit more risque or whatever? Oh, let's throw the wild in there, and this ability to create. Yeah, am I making sense, or is my head cold getting the
Oh
better
no,
of
you're
me?
you're making sense.
Oh, good, because my it's descending further and further into the abyss of soggy cotton wool that is my sinuses.
That's okay. I
Um,
won't make you record another one after this.
oh,
You can go
good,
rest
because
after this.
I don't think I'm physically capable.
Fair enough. Two
Oh,
is enough
dear
for one
me.
night.
Good. So, I mean, again, we will have a good, if we feel this is a necessity, that we can have a deeper look into these archetypal
Yeah.
aspects
I
and
I would like to, but
identifying. Yeah, I mean, we'd plan to do one about hero, but we can obviously go into these a little bit deeper.
yeah.
Um, there's a couple of really out there topics I would love to deepen into. I mean, and obviously we want to stress that these are things that appeal to, that apply to both masculine and feminine and anyone on
Yeah.
the spectrum. It's about the embodiment of energies, not about physicals.
Yeah.
We're not talking about physical genders and
I mean,
physical attributes. We're talking about this on those
yeah.
personal, deeper, intimate levels. Those times when we are alone and with ourselves and want to start healing,
Yeah. Yeah.
healing
I'm
those
also the person
aspects.
that has taken every single D&D class and figured out how to make a tank out of it. Yeah.
Yes, for a GM, I still don't know a great deal about that stuff, but I can weave a story.
Yeah. Well,
That's my
as a
job.
as a GM, you don't need to know a great deal about that stuff. That's for me to know and then beat you over the head with later.
Fair enough. But yeah. I mean, look, let's face it, as far as classes and things like that, there's not really, the crone kind of aspect as far as women go, and women specific or feminine specific characters. They're really,
There was in Pathfinder.
was there? See, I
The
haven't played
witch.
Pathfinder.
There's
Ah,
a witch class, which was very
yes,
crone-like. There
cool.
was also alchemist, which was very mixing of potions, but that was more science and blowing shit
Yeah.
up.
But yes, we can go off on a whole different tangent about the representation of
Yeah,
the feminine in gaming, but that's its
yeah,
own.
that's its own episode.
That would probably be its own month.
4 episode span, all about women. I will say this one
Yes.
thing: I highly support women in gaming. I think men need to
Yeah.
chill the fuck out when there's a female playing with them. She
Mm.
doesn't want to do you. You're not going to get in her pants if you're cool enough and if you kill enough. Get over yourself. I'm sorry, just get over yourself. And that's not to say all men act that way, but if you are one of those men who act that way, get over yourself.
Yes.
She just wants to play the game just like you do.
Yes, indeed. Give the girls a chance. We're very
Yeah,
creative. Very, very creative.
yeah.
But yes.
And
I
any
mean,
any
I'm
guy,
from the era where women were not. Being a girl who played games, yeah, we didn't exist.
yeah, and unfortunately that mentality, some people still hold that mentality, which is terrible. And one of
Yeah,
the
after
many
30
things
years,
I
it
hope
should
to
have
change.
changed.
Yeah, well,
Mm.
after 30 years, a lot of things should have changed, but half of them don't.
This
Um,
is very true. We're starting to catch up, though. This is
yeah,
why we are doing this now, where even a
yeah,
few years ago, even trying to touch this subject, people would have thought we were completely bonkers. I mean,
yeah.
people will still think we're completely bonkers, but there'll be enough people curious enough to go, okay, what the hell are these people on about?
Fair
And
enough.
hopefully find us mildly amusing.
Mildly, at least. But yeah, and if you're lucky enough to have a female sit down at your D&D table, feel blessed because honestly, they are some of the best players I've ever seen and one of the best GMs I've ever seen. So,
Yay! Thank you.
you're welcome.
Considering again, lack of experience,
Yeah.
but
Oh yeah. So, seriously, just give them a chance. And don't get all creepy pervy with them because that's just mean. Uh, but yeah, that's my stance on that.
one dead adventure. Two
I,
dead
I,
adventurers.
I I still have
Ah.
I still have the mental image of Rex fighting him at every hit, just being like one burning slash.
Freaked you out with Fozzie though, didn't I?
A little bit, a little bit. But yeah, wow, we have actually, this has been the quickest these episodes have felt to me. This one, like, we
This
burned through
one?
an hour relatively quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of juiciness there, and I know I could go a lot deeper, but head
Yeah,
cold and my brain is
yeah.
yeah, soggy cotton wool.
That, and I think saving each one and giving them, because I really, because we hit the second one and we were already at 40 minutes and I was like, I really would like to go
Yeah,
deeper into all of these, but we don't
yeah.
have the time. We technically could have the time and make one 5-hour episode. I'd rather not.
I think we'd lose some people somewhere
uh,
somewhere along the way if we went
I'm
that
also
long.
I'm also pretty sure Anchor would be like, no, you're done, because I think Anchor has a 2-hour time limit. But
Fair enough. But yeah, no, I think it's probably best so then people can just focus on the ones that really call to them too, and then
yeah,
later on catch up on the others.
yep. Um,
Alrighty. And yes, I will get over my cold.
Oh, and to also clarify, one final clarification,
Hmm?
mostly because I can't think of a better word for it. When we say male and female, we don't necessarily mean the gender you were born with. And I'm throwing
No.
that one out there because I know people are going to be like, "You're not you're not also talking about transgender and blah blah blah. I mean, you know, we've said it a couple times. Your soul is a mix. Like everyone
Yeah.
has male and female aspects inside of them. They're a traditional way of looking at it. Masculine and feminine is the better words.
Yeah, the masculine and feminine, especially when we do deep spiritual work, embodiment work, and things along those lines. The simple fact is we have to use the terms masculine and feminine because there simply aren't other terms to
Yeah.
use.
Oh yeah.
This is nothing to do with gender. This has
Yeah.
nothing to do with sexuality and everything to do with the energetics
Yep.
of what are typically masculine and what are typically feminine.
Yep.
Um, uh, Masculine tends to be that straight line focus. Feminine tends to be the weaving embodiment. Using those two different energetic aspects of, and yes, everyone is a mixture of both, regardless of where you stand on the gender spectrum, where you identify yourself sexually. It has nothing to
Yeah.
do with that at all,
Yeah.
and everything to do with the embodiment of these particular
Hmm.
energetics that we call masculine and feminine, simply for the lack of any better terminology.
Yeah. And I honestly think a big step towards, I don't want to use the word solving the problem, but helping with the whole toxic masculinity issue is for masculine people to recognize that they have feminine traits and be
Yes.
comfortable and fucking okay with it.
Yes, so there's a lot there too for women to identify and understand that we can be just as responsible for toxic
Uh-huh.
masculine behaviors as well.
Yeah.
That not
Bye.
everything in the world is man's fault.
Yeah. And a big chunk of that is women doing things like, why aren't you stronger? Why aren't you doing this? Why are
Yeah,
you crying? You're not allowed to cry. And it's
yeah,
that all leads
absolutely.
to toxic masculinity too. All of it.
Absolutely. There's a lot. I mean, we women, yes, there has been certain things in history and we could go on a very, very deep tangent on this.
But
Um, which we won't go into to that single levels, but we
yeah.
all need to just take responsibility. We cannot change what happened in the past. All we can do is alter our own actions, our
Yeah.
own beliefs, and our own actions. And guys out there, this does not mean that all spiritual women want men to be feminine or standing totally in your feminine all the time. Yes,
No.
be in touch with that gentle, sensitive side. But most women want you standing in your empowered masculine.
Yeah.
You're empowered, you're embodied, you're mature masculine selves. We don't want more feminine. We got enough of our own we're trying to deal with. We're trying to embody, and what we're looking for is someone who is the complement of us.
Yeah.
Is if we are standing strong in our feminine, we need someone who stands strong in their masculine. But again, there'll be times where we will stand in our masculine and we need you to stand in your feminine. It is a fluid dance between the two. That is just the way the energetics work. And that
Yeah.
dance is not just with another outside of self, that dance is within self too.
Yep.
And I think that's as deep as we need to get to today. We'll leave that for people to ponder and people go, wow. Or
Woo!
just, yeah,
Fun
like, yeah.
tangents. Going deeper into topics that have nothing to do with the primary topic we started on. Woo!
But again, this was the whole point, is these stories, these experiences give us these incredibly new doorways
Yep.
for us to know ourselves, to know
Yep.
our own souls, and whether
Right.
that is just that higher level of consciousness or whether that is your connection to the divine,
Mm-hmm.
that is your call.
Oh,
It
fun.
is all for improving yourself, healing
Yep.
self.
And a fun fact on this topic, Odin was considered feminine.
Hmm.
That's
And
something
it's a
people don't
funny,
think about.
yeah, it's a funny thing. I mean, Odin, because of course he was the seeker of knowledge, and knowledge
Yep.
and
And
magic
he was
was a
magic
feminine
user.
thing.
Yep.
Yeah,
In Norse culture, magic was very feminine. Only women magic was woman's work, and Odin is the one who created magic in a lot of
it,
ways.
it again, it's one of those signs of the times, though. I mean, if you look at the kings of the pantheons of gods, I mean, Zeus is particularly known for this. There are loads and loads of memes about Zeus. Greek history. Greek history, this
Can I
massive,
say
massive,
mine?
thick volume, and then Greek history is if Zeus didn't have sex with everything.
My favorite has always been the summing up of Greek history as Zeus saying, "I want to fuck that thing," everyone telling him it's a bad idea, and then Zeus fucking it anyway.
But the whole point was Zeus being the father, or all the father figure gods, all the heads of the pantheon, usually had multiple lovers,
Yeah,
multiple children to multiple lovers, because in those days, that was the epitome of male virility,
yeah,
was that he could go out and have sex with whoever and whatever he wanted. And that was how their culture saw, alpha male, that he had that prerogative. Of course, you do
yeah,
that by modern standards, hey, yeah, you're not exactly going to be married or whatever. But again, society is now moving away from that, apparently.
yeah.
The younger generations are finding less and less importance with getting married and whatnot. And that's, again, it just shows the evolution of the time. But
Yep, that's
now, of course,
perfectly fine.
the peak of male virility is not seen as the how many women can you have sex with. It actually is one of those turn off features rather than turn on features, and it's a sign of the evolution of our stories, the
Yeah.
evolution of our archetypes.
All right, I'm
Uh,
going to cut this off here because you sound like
okay.
you are about to pass out. Just fill with snot like an overflowing bucket and then pass out.
Soggy cotton wool. Soggy cotton wool in my head. Don't
Fair
be
enough.
mean to me. I'll go and sulk.
Not being mean, I'm just being honest.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm just sulking
Fair
because I've
enough.
got a cold.
All right, you go get some rest.
I will.
All right. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Take care of you.